Alrighty, thank you very much, Bill. So me and Pramodya, we met back when I was in Auckland Grammar, as many of my stories tend to go. And Pramodya was someone who's worked in tech for many years. He's a software engineer, works at the University of Auckland. Actually originally studied civil. Yeah, originally studied civil, but I came over to the dollar bills. And now he's into blockchain technology. He's part of Futureverse, which is, I think, one of the only companies in New Zealand which has managed to successfully conglomerate 12 different companies. 11 or 12. So he's a great friend of mine, someone who I really looked up to growing up. And please welcome Pramodya de Alwis.
Alright, hi guys. My name is Pramodya. I'm a software engineer and a founder of an early stage startup focusing on the next generation of financial markets. And yes, I also work at Futureverse and develop interoperability. But this work I'm not actually doing at Futureverse. This is more of my innovative work I do on the side. So in my previous roles, I've worked as a digital identity innovator, working with organizations like Hospitality New Zealand, where we developed the Kiwi Access online application process, where we piloted DIA's password verification and facial recognition software, which is now being used by all sorts of other organizations today. I'm a blockchain enthusiast, so I've had the opportunity to work with Formula One in Melbourne to pilot their fan engagement program, which now runs on blockchain rails. And I'm a mentor. I love teaching people about what I do, whether it just be software engineering in general, or digital identity, blockchain, whatever it is. So the topic today is real world assets, which is a weird name because in the real world we just call it assets. But it's a bit different when you bring it to a digital world, right? So what is a real world asset? It's a tokenized representation of an asset, right? And it's an asset that can be based on physical, digital, or even database. Database pretty much means it could be a document even, or a website, or a database. So an RWA could be real estate, art, commodities, shares, pretty much anything we would have that could be tangible. Like I said in the previous slide, physical, digital, right? But how does it work? So obviously, like everything today, you need internet. Quite controversially, you need blockchain for this one. And because you need blockchain, you probably need some lawyers, right? Especially when you're dealing with traditional finance. So what is RWA now? It's a tokenized representation of an asset on the blockchain, right? That's the unique aspect of it, and that's why we call it real world assets. Because on the blockchain, the digital space, and when we're looking out from a digital space, we're looking at the real world, right? And that's something that hasn't been done yet, and it's something that the world has been working on for the last 10 years since blockchain technology came out. How can we integrate the real world with the digital world?
Can I ask just a silly question here?
Yeah.
What does that mean, a tokenized representation of an asset?
I will get into that.
Oh, yeah.
So, why RWA, right? So, by 2030, there will be $16 trillion in a liquid asset, right? And a liquid asset is something with a high investment threshold. So, some of you guys may be able to afford it, 250K investments in one pot, but I can show you most retail investors cannot, right? And even if they could, they can't risk all of that money, right? Something with high intermediary costs, so there's always someone in the middle flipping a ticket, and it makes it harder for little people, I guess, to get investment from others, right? And of course, there's limited information. You can't invest in what you don't know. And this is where tokenization comes in, right? Tokenization is taking a big asset, could even be a house, could be a car, and breaking it down into small pieces, right? And with the power of blockchain, with the scale of it, you can actually interact with all the small pieces, and you can own small pieces, right? So I'm not sure what the next line goes here. So I'll just talk about it now then. So a small piece could be a house, right? You could tokenize your house. Someone could own 10%, 20%, you could keep 50% of it, and that could give you capital to do another venture, start a business, whatever. But it means 50% of that rent, if you put it to rental yield goes to you, the other 50% gets again pushed back to the chain, the blockchain, and it gets distributed amongst everyone, right? And there could be 1 million people fighting for something else. They're bringing it. And for some places like in India, Sri Lanka, where I'm from, third world countries, that could be reality, right? For them, that's big money, right? So it becomes a possibility now. So why blockchain? It's transparent. The transparency means everyone knows what's going on. You can see it. You can read it. If you know how to read things on blockchain, you'll realize that there's actually a lot of information out there. So that means it's auditable, right? So the government, they can audit it. It's pretty safe. It's trustless. That means there's no middlemen. Contracts can be read by anyone. You can validate it. I mean, most people can't read the code, but they can trust someone to audit the code, give you a certificate. Yes, this is what it does, right? But unlike your bank, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Yes, they get regulated by the government, but at the end of the day, can you trust them to not lose your money, right? So this gives that extra protection on that. And one of the things I like to talk about when I talk about trustlessness is physical transactions versus digital transactions, right? In a physical world, if I want to buy an apple for myself, I'll give them $5, right? 5 NZ dollars, buy an apple. Expensive apple, buy it, right? And there's no one in the middle there. There's no one in the middle saying, no, I can't buy that apple. I'll give him the money and he'll give me the apple, right? But in a digital world, in a digital application, say I buy that apple from Countdown, right? There's a bank in the middle, through a credit card. There's always something in the middle that can maybe block it, maybe they don't like you. Block. And that has happened before, right? People who are against the government get blocked, right? But using blockchain technology, and it's the first time it's been done, in a digital application, you're able to transfer value without anyone being in the middle, only computer code, right? And computer code that can't say otherwise, right? And no one can come in and really just break it apart. Like they cannot, I guess, do illegal things at that point or do things in the middle. Yeah.
If you went back 60 years, 80 years, 100, was it bartering in a different form?
Yes, exactly. No, bartering is the usual example I use. Bartering would be like fish for chicken, right? And that's literally what you're doing on the blockchain, right? And that had not been possible in a digital world, right? Even if you buy off TradeMe, still got TradeMe in the middle, right? And they're taking a little fee there. They decide the fee, right? And that's massive, right? So that's why blockchain, that's why a lot of people are now moving towards blockchain, right? And you'll see in the next few slides who those people could be. And my personal favorite as head of interoperability at Futureverse is obviously interoperability. Interoperability is how systems seamlessly coordinate with one another, right? Like I'm able to talk to you guys in English, right? But I can't talk to a computer system, or another computer system can't talk to another computer system without understanding the interface. With blockchain, it makes that interface generic, so it's actually very easy to use. So what happens is a company can be over there, a company can be over there, and there's a blockchain in the middle. And what they're doing is they're not interacting as companies, they're interacting through the blockchain. They're communicating on that level, right? So that's interoperability. Blockchain is just another technology that enables us to do things more efficiently, right? It's not a way of life, although some people tend to say it is. It is just another piece of technology, like a database, or even a web browser, just another piece of tech, right? And it runs on the internet.
Any questions from anybody so far?
Yeah, what's the chances of getting hacked? I mean, these hackers seem to be able to get into anything.
Yeah.
Make things do what they like.
That's actually a very good question. So with blockchain tech, it's quite interesting because hacking the blockchain means you have to hack 50% of the computing power of the chain. So what that means is, for Bitcoin, for example, there are maybe 100,000 nodes all over the world they're running, right? And they're all crunching numbers. So for someone to hack it, they need to take 50% of that power and hack all of that, right? Which is a big task, almost impossible. that means you might as well just take down the government, right? So, so once you get that 50% power, you can do a few things to fool the rest of the system. But that's the thing. It's security by scale almost, right? It's decentralization. So in the same way that if the government wants to take down, or someone wants to take down the system, if they don't agree with it, they can't just take it down. They can take down maybe 1 or 2 of the nodes, but there's still 100,000 nodes out there working, right? And that's the security aspect. The other part of security is you own your private key. It's pretty much the same as you owning, it's like yourself, really. You are the key to the internet, right? And without this key, no one can impersonate you, right? On the internet, a lot of impersonation happens because they hack into a system like, I don't know, maybe your Facebook account. They hack in and they impersonate you, right? And that's because of a fault in the Facebook system, right? So with blockchain, because it's really hard because of the decentralization. There are lots of computers out there working together, and they can pick out the imposter, right? So that's security. Is that something?
How does blockchain get its for the people who developed blockchain?
Yeah.
How do they get an earn on it?
How do they learn to
Earn.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, to pay for the cost of developing.
Got you. So cost of developing blockchain products.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cost of developing blockchain products. There's a few models. One of the models we've seen quite a bit. If you create maybe a fund, you would keep 10% of the tokens, right? And that would be the developer fee, right? The developer cost, and you would take that 10% and you would sell the remaining 90%, right? And it will be totally open to the public that they took 10% because that's their developer fee for helping out other people, right? And that's agreed upon, and that's just it's just simple. You will be this, I'll give you that. Yeah, and that's the simplest one. And I don't think there's any other model that really supersedes that right now. But you could see a fee structure built into the smart contract itself, right? So smart contract would be you buy, and we're getting tokenization here, but say you build an RWA fund, and to buy from that fund, to buy maybe 10% of the fund, they will take maybe 0.02% of fees for that, right? And that'll go into a separate pool. That could work as well. Not sure if that'll be popular because the competition will be quite intense. So unless it's a very good fund, they may not be able to do that. That's how current funds work, right? Current hedge funds work like that. So yeah, that's basically how you make money on chain.
How many blockchain entities are there?
There are a few blockchains now. There's Ethereum and Bitcoin are the biggest, and then there are a few that run off of Ethereum. So Ethereum's like almost the grandpa, and there's a few that tell grandpa, okay, this is what's happening, right? Child chains that tell the grandpa chain, okay, this is what's happening, and this Ethereum is very secure, right? It's impossible to fool Ethereum because of just how much computational power there is. So the small chains, they actually sync data to the big one. Now that means there's probably like 100, 200, but the way this works is these chains can all communicate with each other, right? So no matter how many there are, there's an economic incentive for them to always be able to communicate with each other, be able to transfer value to each other. So it doesn't really matter how many blockchains there are, as long as they're secure, right? And that's up to the public to decide, okay, that chain doesn't look that secure, we're not going to use it. And that's what tends to happen.
So how would you know if one's more secure than the other? Remember, a while ago that guy overseas got caught and he lost a lot of money and is in jail now or whatever. How do you know if it's going to go bad?
So the reason he would have lost a lot of money is because he would have lost his private key. He would have put it somewhere where he shouldn't have. Usually,
This guy who ran the company, and I think he invested.
oh, you're talking about FTA?
Yeah, that's
Okay, that wasn't a blockchain. They weren't running a
Oh, was it?
blockchain.
Okay.
They were fooling everyone into thinking they were running blockchain. But I had a look at the website, and I think I was like, I looked at like 2019, I was like, okay, no, that's crap. But most blockchain people would have noticed that. But to the other people, the people that don't really use blockchain tech, they would have been fooled by what was available on the platform because they had cryptocurrencies on the platform. So they got fooled. And what happened was they kept the money in a normal bank account. That could have been hacked if they hacked into the systems, which eventually did happen. What actually happened with that one was they did very bad investing. They had a very bad investing strategy. So they took people's money and invested it elsewhere, and then their investments crumbled, and then the whole company crumbled, and that's what happened in that case. Yeah, it's just a very bad venture hedge fund, really. Yeah.
Well, can I go back to your example of
Yes.
selling my house
Yes.
as a real world asset?
Yeah.
What's in it for you to buy a very small percentage of a house?
Well, I can give rental yield of your house. I don't have enough money to buy a whole house, right? But I can buy 10% of a house and I can still make some money off it. As long as the profits from purchasing the house over maybe a 10-year period outweigh the expense.
So I'll be making an offer to buy 10% of the house
Yeah.
and pay your rent with like an interest rate.
Yeah, well, it's like because I own 10% of the house now. It's collective ownership now, right? So what happens with collective ownership, whether it be a company or whatever, is the profits go back to the collective owner, right? So remember, these tokens also go up in value with the value of the house, right? So in 10 years you can sell it for double almost, right? That's how the price goes. Could be quadruple in the
Yeah.
but that's how it works, right? So it's a good investment for them, right? Especially those people in third world countries. And we're talking cross-border investment, right? So you're accessing liquidity that could have never been accessed before, right? And that's what makes it so powerful.
And how do you promote yourself on?
Oh well, it depends on the sales channels. Usually, sales channels you set up with a company over there that would help you bring capital onto that, right? Because they would work in that market. Obviously, they'll get a small cut. The usual sales channels, right? Yeah.
As part of my struggle to try and understand it, if we take the Ethereum one you mentioned, a series of questions that come up for me. So, who are the founders? Who set that Ethereum up? Are they still the owners, or does anybody own it? And is there any policy of what sort of asset and trading you can do through that, or is it open for anything?
Yeah, so I'll start with who created it. So it was created by the Ethereum Foundation. One of the head programmers was Vitalik, who's almost referred to as a god in the Ethereum world because he really saw 10, 20 years ahead when he created the platform. How did he earn money? They don't own the platform anymore. They don't own Ethereum, but they do. I think the foundation owns 10% of all Ethereum ever minted, and I think Vitalik owns 2% of that. So he's very rich, right? Because the tokens now are very expensive. I think one Ethereum is 3,000 NZ or US dollars, I can't remember. So that's how they make their money, right? It's kind of like an investment up early, and if they get people using the platform, it's just supply and demand at that point. The price goes up because what people are paying for is to use the network, right? And as you use the network, the price of the token goes up, which then how the economics work is it gives them profits. Yeah.
So if they don't own it, who manages the platform?
Yes. So
if it needs more investment to operate as a platform, how does that happen?
Yeah. So the Ethereum Foundation helps maintain the blockchain, but it's also open source software. So I can go and modify code, right? I can go modify code and I can push a request to change the code. People in the foundation and other members, completely public, they can go and, they can say, no, this is not right, you're doing this wrong. And that's how you maintain the blockchain. It's what we call open source code. Yeah. And it's incentivized that everyone is incentivized to run that code because it obviously generates the money. But node creators, the people who run nodes, they take that code and they run it in their node. Now, if people don't agree with the code, they don't run it. Simply don't run it, and they're like, nah, we're not doing this. This is bogus. You've done something to this. There's something wrong with it. They don't run it, right? So it's very much it's very much a voting system. Yeah. I don't think I finished answering your question, did I? The last part of your question. I can't remember. Okay, so okay, so that's why blockchain, right?
Just a quick question on that voting part. Do you mind just explaining how the voting process works?
Yeah, so the voting process for how they decide to...
Like the rules of, let's say, Ethereum or like...
Yeah, so if you've got 100,000 nodes, right? And the Ethereum Foundation says, which is an open source foundation, not-for-profit, they say, okay, please upgrade to this system, this version. Everyone goes, yeah, okay, and you have this long to do so. You go, okay, and then everyone starts slowly upgrading, right? But then if less than 50% don't upgrade, that means the system won't actually move to the new version. And what happens is you've got this in blockchain where you've got forks, right? Pretty much a new blockchain can be created, right? And when a new blockchain gets created, it's up to, again, people to decide, okay, I am going to follow this one because I believe in what they're trying to do, right? And there's already 2 or 3 forks of Ethereum already, right? But not many people use them, okay? Because they are the less popular versions of it, right? Bitcoin has the same. There's Bitcoin Cash, which came from Bitcoin. So there's things like that do happen. So it's very much a democratized system of where do I want to actually spend my money, right? And that's the chain that will have the most value. Yeah. All right. I think I'm only like halfway through, so keep going. So, but very good questions. I was actually going to let you guys ask questions after every slide. That's probably good as a checkpoint. So the current reality of the financial markets looks like this. As you can see, there's a platform, there's a settlement system, and there's asset providers. Right? As you can see, there's multiple platforms in this case, right? And as you can see, the coins are different colors. And what that represents, they're actually derivatives of this coin, right? So each platform has their own version of that asset. Right? And you probably noticed that there are multiple icons that show people and their wallets on each platform, right? And what happens in current financial markets is when you want to buy any asset, you have to create an account on that platform, which means you have to get KYC, and you have to transfer your funds there. And what happens when you transfer your funds is they become a custodial owner of those funds, right? Now, if they go down, like FTX did, they just give you an IOU, which means they don't actually have to give you back those funds, right? You don't own the funds, they don't have to give it back to you. And the even more interesting thing that most people don't understand is the shares that you buy on these platforms, or any asset you buy on these platforms, you don't own any of it, right? It's fully owned by the platform. They just give you an IOU again, saying, okay, yeah, no, this is the. You can sell it, but if we go down, too bad, right? So that's one aspect of it. Obviously now there's multiple platforms, so maybe this guy has assets you want, okay, you jump on that platform. And this guy has assets, this other platform has assets you want, you have to jump on that platform. More KYC, more splitting your money, more just too much, there's just so much going on here. And then of course you've got the guy in the middle, the settlement system. And you can see these white lines showing integration points, and they also conveniently show where the fees go. So they make all the money, right? That means this guy makes even less money, right? He's got to pay fees to this guy and this guy, right? And eventually, kind of like that, okay? So, and the problem with these platforms are they dictate what you can do. So there was a big thing in America in 2021 during COVID with GameStop, AMC, where Robinhood a very popular broker, they halted sales on the platform, well, for those specific shares. And they said you can't buy anymore because the price was ramping up. They said you couldn't buy anymore, but what did you sell? Right? That was the restriction. But the funny thing is, this restriction was only to retail investors, like you or me, you know? But the institutional guys, they can keep buying. So isn't that quite unfair? So again, example of them telling you what you can and cannot do. Okay? So now let's move on to the next generation of financial markets. And it looks like this. We've got the blockchain in the middle, the asset provider on the left, and investors on the right. The asset providers directly engage with the blockchain, and they tokenize the assets and put them there, right? And for the users, much lower fees. They own all their funds. So notice how the users are actually outside the blockchain, because they actually have full ownership of their funds, right? They decide where they go, and they decide if the blockchain, if there's no one on the blockchain that says, no, you can't use your money now. They can't lock it up, right? And then, and they own everything they purchase, right? All the RWAs they purchase, they own, right? And that's up to the smart contract and all the, I guess all the logic in there that lets them have full ownership over those assets, right? So obviously there's regulations at play here. When you're bringing the traditional finance world into the blockchain and digital world, you've got to talk about regulations. So there's a clear absence of regulation governing tokenized assets in most markets. But here's the thing, UAE has already created an entire framework for RWA tokenization and leading the world in that space, right? And this is actually funny because Asol asked me to come do a talk in November. It got pushed to December, and finally we're doing it now in February. And I could not have given the same talk then. It's only been pushed forward because of UAE's regulations and how they pushed it forward. Now because the UAE has done it, the whole world is gonna, go along with it because there's a lot of money at stake here. They can't just sit back. So you'll see over the next year, you'll see a lot of governments really moving towards getting RWAs certified and working for their economy, right? So how do you invest? Quite simple. You on-ramp your funds to get cryptocurrency. Obviously, that requires KYC, and this is where it's hard to do fraud, because once you put your money onto a chain, you can see if you do anything bad on the chain, they can link it back to who gave you those funds, and they can verify your identity, right? So for governments, for money laundering, for anti-money laundering entities, they can figure all of that out, right? That's why it's super safe, right? And of course, the next step is to find an application which you can use to interact with other bits, and that's it. They're quite scarce now, obviously, it's quite new tech, but you'll see them pop up in the future, and they'll look just like Sharesies, Hatch, whatever you use, even ASB Securities or ANZ shares.
The abbreviation KYC, what's that?
That means it's know your customer. So if you go to a bank and you want to create a bank account, they take your passport.
Yeah.
That's the bank doing know your customer checks on you, just to see if you are who you say you are. Yeah. It's just an identity verification. So some of you guys there may want to tokenize your assets. So obviously, at this point you need to work with an expert. This will get easier and easier over time. But you can tokenize something, a fund of any size. You can tokenize a house. You can tokenize a commercial building, right? Something that may take a bit more capital than a house. It could be 100 million, but now you've got access to way more liquidity, right? International liquidity, right? So you've got way more reach on an open platform, and you don't need to work with intermediaries in the middle that are taking you for all you've got, right? less fees mean more for the investors and more for you, and more for the actual economy. So because you can actually build that commercial building you always wanted to build properly, right? So yeah, question.
Is it what currency? Is it all currencies? Or?
So yeah, you can use on the blockchain. You can use any currency. So there's Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency, but there is USD as well, US dollar. It's called USDC. There's different derivations of USD, but they're all stable coins, which means they're all pegged to the US dollar.
How does the government tax you on it?
The government tax you. So when you right now, when you take your money out of the chain, they tax you, right? So if you want to use your money in this world, they tax you. But obviously, when you plug into these platforms, they KYC you as well, and obviously these platforms will slowly have to start working with the government, right? And that's where you will have to pay tax. But right now, the best way the government does it is when you take your money out, you get taxed. It's just like shares, same thing.
So you get taxed on the profit?
You get taxed on profit, just like shares.
So it is lock it in the end, don't take it.
Yeah, you can lock it in there. Yeah, that's the most you can do with shares is. Yeah. So yeah, exact same thing. So regulations are almost there. It's just little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Sorry, just a question. You mentioned about lawyers and needing lawyers because you're trying to create something.
Are you a lawyer?
No, the question is, I mean, what I do know about lawyers is, you know, as soon as you've got a lawyer involved, there's usually arguments as to, you know, interpretation.
The meaning of words. The meaning of words.
Yeah, documentation.
Yeah.
And so, how, is that avoided somehow? I mean,
So,
where does that come in?
So, obviously, in the startup I'm founding, we will be working with lawyers to build that framework. So asset providers can come in and it's just ready for them to go. Obviously, yeah, we'll have to work with lawyers to figure out for the current jurisdiction how they can word it up so it works. And that's the difficult part, right? And that's part of what we're doing. And that will be, you know, obviously the fees we will charge on to our customers. But yeah, we will have to work with lawyers. Some lawyers will have custodial ownership over property. They'll pretty much create a trust, and they will actually work directly with the on-chain smart contracts themselves. So there's a few moving pieces here, but I think the liquidity that is available will far outweigh those risks.
Presumably the assets don't have to be physical. They can be intellectual property.
Yes,
they
I
could be
believe.
intangibles. They could be.
Yeah, they can be database, they can be anything. As long as you can attach value to it and you can split it up and maybe you can. Well, the thing is you need to be able to generate profits off those. So a big thing is maybe you own Lord of the Rings franchise, right? So you tokenize that, and you want to tokenize that. Maybe Lord of the Rings so say we tokenized Lord of the Rings before it became a movie. You know, J.R. Tolkien's small time dude. He wants to build a film, direct a film, whatever. He will tokenize his IP and he'll sell it to people and be like, okay, I want $100 million for this IP. Show me what you got. They get 100 million, they build the film. Film makes $1 billion. Profits get distributed. Simple as that.
So when you tokenize an asset on the system, what's the process for proving that you have the asset, own the asset, and that you have the rights to do something with it?
That's where the lawyers come in.
Yeah, that's where the lawyers. That's technically where the lawyers come in, and that's where
Actually a process.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, and that's where real world regulation does come into play, and that's where UAE is far ahead of the curve, right? UAE can now use RWA tokenization to fund their next venture, right? Their next big commercial venture. But the rest of us here in New Zealand, we're still not there yet, right? So we can fund the next Burj Khalifa, right? And the New Zealand government can't do anything about it because it's our money, right? But there's no one that's able to fund the project here. That's the problem. Yeah.
You've made blockchain technology much more understandable, thank you. But what I don't understand is that blockchain came about
became more local knowledge because of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
What's the value behind cryptocurrency? Why have they gone up exponentially in value? What's behind it?
Scarcity is the big one.
Yeah,
So-
there's no value, no reality behind that.
No, okay, what's the reality behind gold? What gives gold value, right? It's perceived. It is perceived to an extent, right? Yes, we can use it to do certain things, right? We can use it to build electric circuits. But mostly it's true. But that's perceived value now, right? But people have put value into gold because it can be used as some sort of backing for another currency. In the same way, Bitcoin does it. It does it the same way. Bitcoin is literally called digital gold because you have to find it, you mine for it, you find it, you have to solve very big numbers, you get it as a reward, and then it gets harder and harder and harder for the next 100 years till there's no Bitcoin left to mine, right? And that's when Bitcoin will go crazy high. It's like finding all the gold on planet Earth, right? Same thing. So it's going to get harder and harder to mine it. That's why the price goes up.
If Bitcoin is digital, why can't you just keep?
So it's been
The government's good at that.
Exactly. That's the contract that was built into the code,
Yes.
right? That nobody can now modify. That now nobody can modify. That says there's a halving every certain number of blocks, so it's around every 2 to 3 years, where it gets twice as hard